I apologize to you. My behavior was unacceptable. Jada had nothing to do with it.
After 3 months of silence, Will Smith finally made a video to talk about and explain what was going on through his head the night where he slapped Chris Rock at the Oscars. But what does his body language tell us? In this video, I'm gonna break down his facial expressions, his body language, his word choice to try to figure out, is this sincere? Is some of it sincere? Is none of it sincere? And what is going on through his head emotionally? Let's go. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Behavioral Arts. And this video is a little emotional for me because this event is the reason that a lot of you found my channel. And it's responsible for the major spike in the channel's sort of growth. Now, as many of you know, I love to hear from you and I love to give you the opportunity to form your own opinion before I dive in. So we're gonna do that right now. Now, the full video link will be in the description, but right now I'm gonna show you a couple of clips that I feel are important, and there's a lot of things to look into, and I want you to see what you feel, what you see. Are you seeing sincerity? Are you seeing a complete lack of sincerity? Are there certain parts that you feel are a little more genuine than others? I want you to form an opinion.
Mm-hmm. Why didn't you apologize to Chris in your acceptance speech? I was fogged out by that point. It's all fuzzy. I've reached out to Chris, and the message that came back is that he's not ready to talk. I apologize to you. My behavior was unacceptable, and I'm here whenever you're ready to talk. I want to apologize to Chris's mother. I saw an interview that Chris's mother did, and you know, that was one of the things about that moment. I just didn't realize, and you know, I wasn't thinking, but how many people got hurt in that moment. I spent the last 3 months replaying and understanding the nuances and the complexities of what happened in that moment. I'm not going to try to unpack all of that right now, but I can say to all of you, there is no part of me that thinks that was the right way to behave in that moment. There's no part of me that thinks that's the optimal way to handle a feeling of disrespect or insults. After Jada rolled her eyes, did she tell you to do something? No. It's like, you know, I made a choice on my own, from my own experiences, from my history with Chris. Jada had nothing to do with it. I'm sorry, babe. I'm gonna say sorry to my kids and my family for the heat that I brought on all of us. To all my fellow nominees, you know, this is a community. It's like I won because you voted for me, and it really breaks my heart to have stolen and tarnished your moment. I can still see Questlove's eyes. You know, it happened on Questlove's award, and you know, it's like I'm sorry really isn't sufficient. What would you say to the people who looked up to you before the slap, or people who expressed that you let them down? So there's two things. One, disappointing people is my central trauma. The work I'm trying to do is I am deeply remorseful and I'm trying to be remorseful without being ashamed of myself, right? I'm human, and I made a mistake, and you know, if you hang on, I promise we'll be able to be friends again.
There it was. Hope you got a sense of what's going on a little, what you're feeling, what he's feeling. And if you want to, go back and watch it again, take a quick look, and pause the video, head down to the comments, and give me your first impression. Let me know at first glance, what are you feeling? Did you see anything in the body language? Did you hear something that felt a little off? Overall, what are you feeling? Is this sincere? Is it insincere? And now it's my turn, so we're gonna take it from the beginning, step by step, and I'm gonna point out some things that I'm seeing that might indicate what's going on in Will Smith's head, emotionally, what he's experiencing. So let's start right from the top.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so some of you are probably a little confused as to why I've stopped here and what I could possibly tell you about body language from a clip where we barely saw anything. He was only in the last few seconds. But this is a really good opportunity to, before we even see the body language in certain cases, to sort of look at the scenario, how it's being set up, how it's being presented before he even sits down. Because everything we're seeing there, everything is a decision. Somebody made the decision to do it this way. Now, you might remember a couple of months ago, I did an analysis of a Joe Rogan apology where he just grabbed his phone, turned it on, it wasn't produced, it wasn't edited. And in that video, I said that that felt sincere. Whether it was intentional or not, it felt sincere that he just grabbed his phone, and that gave us a message that I want to be doing this, not that I have to be doing this. And a lot of people in the comments agreed. This is the opposite of that. Why are we starting with a text? There's this text that starts where he's saying, you know, it's been a while, there's some things that I wanted to talk about. Why is it a text? Why isn't he sitting down, you know, casually, sort of candid, and saying that to the camera? Hey everyone, it's been a minute, but I wanted to do this video. Why are we getting a text? And while this text is up, you know, there's this blurry background. That's a decision. Somebody decided to do it that way. And we're hearing chatter in the back. Like there's a lot of people involved in this. Well, why? If this is Will Smith's apology to his audience, to his fans, to Chris Rock, why is there a whole team? Why am I hearing this chatter and people talking? Then we hear this shaky, nervous exhale. It's not a smooth breathing out, but it's shaky, like we're meant to hear this. Again, that didn't have to be there. That's a decision. So they're telling us, okay, he's nervous here. Then we see him from the side angle. It's blurry. That was done on purpose. And there's a handheld camera. So handheld cameras is something that we often use to make it seem like more natural, more real. Handheld makes it feel like it's human as opposed to a stagnant tripod. So we get this blur, we get this side angle, he's sitting down, it's meant to look casual. But instead of putting that much effort into making this look casual, why not just make it casual? Why not just grab your phone and say, listen, there's a couple of things I have to get off my chest, starting with blah, 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 blah. So I feel like this attempt to make it seem casual, for me, is going the complete opposite way. It's giving me a vibe of this being highly produced. We also have this side angle, like it's supposed to make us feel like, oh, it's not straight to camera, we're kind of on the side. We're getting sort of this behind the scenes view. Conveniently, they put that poster in the back where it says, you know, love is the cure. So, you know, this is all meant to start off by giving us a certain impression, but it would have been a lot more effective if you were actually just super candid. That's my opinion. Then to follow up with that sort of nervous exhale, we see him sit down and we see a lot of heavy pacifying in the hands. So pacifying is any self-soothing gesture. Usually it's a repetitive gesture, something that happens sort of like on a loop. And it's any type of rubbing, any type of sort of this kind of thing. It's a way to calm us down. It's literally a self-massage to calm down the nerves. We're seeing a lot of that.
Why didn't you apologize to Chris in your acceptance speech? I was fogged out by that point. It's all fuzzy. I've reached out to Chris, and the message that came back is that he's not ready to talk. I apologize to you. My behavior was unacceptable, and I'm here whenever you're ready to talk.
So right there, he's answering the first question. Or is he? We're going to get back to that in just a sec. But I want to start off with his demeanor. Because for those of us who know Will Smith, and you guys know how much I talk about baselining, because one behavior might be very normal for one person, but a little out of the ordinary for someone else, and that's happening right here. For those of us who know Will Smith, it's very rare to have this serious, monotonous tone down here. Usually he's animated, he's smiling, he's laughing, he's breaking the tension. Even in very tense emotional conversations like the Red Table interview that he did with Jada, he's a lot more animated, smiley. There's a serious tone here. I believe this is by design. I believe whether it was him or his team who said, to emphasize the seriousness here, don't do that joking thing you do. Let's keep this serious. It'll come off as more honest. But it's coming with a couple of other things. One thing I notice is the lack of illustrators. Illustrators are gestures we make to emphasize the points that we're making, and they're usually very well synced with our words. And you're going to see this happen in bursts throughout this video. It's not happening here. He's very still. He's just sitting there, and stillness is consistent with stress. When we're stressed, we don't want to call attention to ourselves, so we move less. I want to treat this and a lot of other clips in this video as an interrogation. I've studied hours and hours of interrogation footage. I have a certification in criminal interrogation, and I want to look at this as though it was an interrogation and what would be happening in my head if I saw this. The first thing is this. One of the things we listen for in interrogation is when we ask a question and an answer is provided, we look at how much of that answer answered our question. Is the person trying to buy time? Are they trying to throw fluff at this, trying to give extra information? And if we look at this question, suspiciously little of his answer actually answered the question. The question was, why didn't you apologize during your acceptance speech? He gave us one sentence on that. I was fuzzed out by then, it was blurry. And then he goes on to talk about how he's tried to reach out, how he's tried to apologize now. Well, that's not really the question. What he's doing now and trying to reach out to Chris now, that's not really the question. The question was, why didn't you apologize during the acceptance speech right there and then? And I think it's a very valid question. And so let's look at the way he handles specifically that. I was fogged out by that point, it's all fuzzy. Now, going back to interrogations, there is one answer in interrogations that is pretty much a checkmate, where an interrogator can't keep pushing. And that answer is, I can't remember. When someone is being asked or questioned about an event where they were, what was going on, and they simply say, I can't remember, I don't recall, there's really not much else we can do. We can't keep pushing, we can't keep asking for answers. They're saying they can't remember. And that's a version of this. By saying it's foggy, it's fuzzy, I can't remember, it's almost like making an excuse for himself where, sorry, I don't have any answers for you, I don't know, I can't remember, it's just not there. And then after the foggy fuzzy thing, he deflects and he answers a completely different question talking about the attempts he's making now, completely ignoring the acceptance speech. So what's the truth? Why didn't he apologize immediately after? If I'm being completely honest, if I had to guess, and there's no way I can prove this, there's no amount of behavior or body language that'll prove this, but if I had to guess, I would say that in that moment, during that acceptance speech, he was still in the mindset that he did the right thing. Because he came up and he started his speech with how the character he played in the movie for which he was winning this Oscar was a fierce protector of family. So in that moment, I think he was like, my character protected his family, I'm just doing the same. And there were elements to that speech that made me believe that in that moment, he still thought that it was justified. Does he still think that now? Maybe not. But I believe the answer to that question just isn't a good look. That in that moment, during that acceptance speech, he still thought that he did the right thing in defending Jada. That's what I think. Let me know in the comments if you agree. Let's take a look at his body language when he actually says the words, I apologize. So there's a few things happening. First, there's an eyebrow flash. His eyebrows go up. He also extends his hand as he says, I apologize. And immediately after, we see a quick lip lick. Now, let's tackle these one at a time. Eyebrow flash, we talk about this a lot on the channel, is typically when we seek social approval or acceptance. We bump into someone we know, hey, how are you? The eyebrows go up. It's a display of innocence. It's a display of connect with me, believe me. So it can happen as much in genuine moments as it can in ungenuine moments when we're trying to convince someone of something. Then immediately after, we see a quick lip licking. And lip licking, especially here, it's not in a cluster. There's a million things happening. Lip licking could be stress. Usually when we're stressed, the mouth dries up. And with Will Smith, it happens a lot. We're going to hear some clicking and popping later, like we did in his acceptance speech. So it's possible that the stress of this has made his mouth dry, and he's just correcting that. Lip licking can also be considered grooming. It brings colors to the lips. It makes us look more presentable. So it usually happens when we're trying to present something and we want to be perceived as honest, truthful, believable. So I think all these things together, that eyebrow flash and that lip lick, something about that makes me feel like he's really concerned with how this is perceived rather than just getting this message of actual sorry across. Now let's be real for a sec. Is that the worst thing in the world? I don't think it is. I think a part of him wants to make sure that this video is well received and well perceived by the fans. That's who he's making it for. His viewers, his followers, people who admire him, people who look up to him. It's for them. So of course there's a part of him who's nervous. Of course there's a part of him who's thinking, you know, I better say the right things or the right things. So yes, obviously there's going to be some things here that make us feel like his bigger concern is connecting with his audience, saying the right thing. So it's not necessarily bad. It's just not so much about him and Chris.
I want to apologize to Chris's mother. I saw an interview that Chris's mother did, and you know, that was one of the things about that moment. I just didn't realize, and you know, I wasn't thinking, but how many people got hurt in that moment.
All right, well, that one is different feeling to me, and let me explain why. So the moment he says, I want to apologize to Chris's mother, there's a couple of things we see there. Once again, we see the eyebrows go up, that eyebrow flash, as the head tilts and is used for emphasis as he goes, mother. And this is a very, typically when something is combined with this sort of one downwards gesture, it's authentic emphasis. It's like, I'm telling you this. Like, I believe this. At the same time, we're seeing that head tilt. Now, I talk about head tilt a lot on the channel, and this is something that's very comfortable. You rarely will tilt your head if you're feeling uncomfortable because it exposes a very vulnerable part of our body. So we do it when we're very comfortable. We also do it sometimes when we're skeptical of something and we're trying to figure it out. But we also do it when we want sympathy or we feel sympathy. Like, aw. But all of these things have comfort in common. So, like if you're skeptical or if you're sympathetic but feeling uncomfortable, you're gonna do it without that head tilt. So in this moment, I think we're seeing a moment of sympathy. I think that head tilt is showing vulnerability. I think that emphasis and that eyebrow flash, and especially the way he says to Chris's mother, he slows down on that. There's that emphasis, head tilt, eyebrow flash. So the eyebrow flash is seeking approval or acceptance. And in this case, I believe he's seeking it from Chris's mother to say, I want to apologize to you. And in this case, I think it was more of a sincere sort of seeking that connection. It's a very sympathetic moment for me. That eyebrow flash might still be for the viewers, that sort of please accept me, please believe me. But I feel like just the way it's done with the tonality, the head tilt, I feel more sincerity from this than a lot of other moments in this video. I think this is actually affecting him. There's more clues to that immediately after, as he says, I saw an interview that his mother did, and he looks down and we get that quick lip lick again.
I saw an interview that Chris's mother did. Now
there's a lot of myths and misinformation out there about the direction of the eyes, all kinds of things that say, oh, up and left is deceptive and up and right is this, and it's all baloney. You need to baseline, you need to know the way a person's eyes move. I can guarantee you in all my years of analysis, I've seen as many people go up and to the left when they're being really recalling, and up and to the right when they're really recalling, up and left when they're being deceptive, up and right when they're being deceptive. Baseline is really, really important when it comes to that. But there are certain generalizations, and downwards tends to be deeply emotional. I'm not saying it's real, I'm not saying it's fake, deceptive, real. Downwards though tends to be emotional. When we're internal monologuing or when something affects us deeply, we tend to go down with the eyes. And in that moment, just look at it. Forget what I'm saying, just look at it. As he says, the interview the mother did, there's a sort of, the lip lick, again, I think it's stress. And we see that sort of looking down like a bit of disappointment. Then he comes to life. his illustrators come to life. What I was saying before, what I was looking for earlier, that usual Will Smith way of talking, it happens here. So he comes up and he's talking about what he saw in this interview, and he's saying one of the things, we see the hands come up like this, and we see eye blocking. His eyes close as he says that. Eye blocking is something we do when we don't want to face something, when we're having a hard time dealing with something. So here, I think he doesn't want to face that interview. I think it actually affected him when he realized he's affected more than just Chris Rock, his mother. And I think he has a lot of respect for that bond. I think Will Smith, in his past, has been very protective of his own mother. And I think seeing Chris Rock's mom caused something in him. And I think we're seeing a real moment here where when he saw the mom on TV, he actually got affected. And I do believe, again, within the frame of this sort of very forceful feeling apology, this video that seems just a little too produced for me, I think right there we're getting a glimmer of something real. All right, now we're going to move on to some more answers, and we're going to talk about that really subtle visual deception that I saw that I'm really excited about. But before we do me a huge favor, hit that subscribe button, turn those notifications on for more behavior analysis.
I spent the last 3 months replaying and understanding the nuances and the complexities of what happened in that moment. I'm not going to try to unpack all of that right now, but I can say to all of you, there is no part of me that thinks that was the right way to behave in that moment. There's no part of me that thinks that's the optimal way to handle a feeling of disrespect or insults.
Okay, well, this video is just really a roller coaster for me because there's so many different sort of moments where I look at it and go, oh, there's some sincerity there. I feel like that part was sincere. And then so many parts where I'm like, that felt totally sus. And this one clip has that. It has highs and lows. So we start by, he says, I've spent months replaying and understanding. And I think right there, that's sort of his little answer to us as to why this took that long. Because let's be honest, all of us sort of wondered when we saw this video, or most of us, why did it take this long? Why wasn't this video made the next day or 2 days after? So maybe he's trying to like block us from thinking, okay, well, this is a PR move. Someone on your side said, listen, man, you got to make this video. You have less opportunities, some canceled opportunities. The people are waiting. You're losing fans. You're losing points. So he doesn't want us thinking that this was done because of that. So he's giving us an answer to that. For months now, I've been thinking about this. Does it mean it's not true? No, I bet he was thinking about this all this time. I bet it has really been weighing on him. He's been thinking about it. But I think he kind of threw this whole, like, it's been months that I'm just replaying this to sort of tell us that's why it took this long, not because this is a PR move. While he's saying that, we're seeing in his eyebrows, they're together like this, downwards. We're seeing a lot of tension up here. And as he's talking, we're seeing quite a bit of tension in the mouth there. And if you pause it at certain moments, you see almost the perfect expression of anger. Now, I talk about this a lot, but Paul Ekman is the doctor who did the most research on universal emotions and how they're expressed. Anger is one of them, and it looks a lot like that, except for the eyes would usually be a little more open as we're focusing on the thing that makes us angry. Maybe the anger is inwards over here, so we're not seeing that sort of targeted anger. Someone might look at that and say, well, those eyebrows, can't that just be like he's thinking, he's reflecting? Usually when we're reflecting, the eyebrows might scrunch up like this, but the face is more relaxed. And there might be a little more sort of this side to side kind of thing and this looking. That's not what this is. There's focus, there's tension, and he's talking about replaying and understanding. And we're seeing anger there with little flashes of sadness. Every now and then the corners go up and come together. And then he tells us what it is that he was reflecting on, and it's the nuances and complexities. This is way too complex. It's too nuanced. He says, I'm not going to unpack this right now. And when he says unpack, it's not a smooth sort of unpack gesture. He's not illustrating the idea of unpacking. He's illustrating the idea of not. We're not doing this right now. Hands come up, very stern movement, those fingers shoot out. We call these stop gestures. Like, when something happens and you want to just, like you're startled. That's what this is. We're not doing this right now. That gesture isn't illustrating the unpack, it's illustrating the not. because this is too complex. I can't explain, we can't understand this. This is way too complex for us to understand. I don't think it's that complex. You got on stage and you slapped a grown man. Explain it to us. That's why we're here. You're making this video. We want you to unpack this. Then I see something that the roller coaster's on the way up, because he says, no part of me thinks that that was the right way to behave in that moment. There's conviction there. He's speaking clearly. He's not making too many excuses. He's not hesitating too much. There's a bit of lip compression, lip licking stuff going on there. But there is this thing with the arm where he's just sort of going, that was not the right way to behave in that moment. And I kind of see that as his hand is the moment. It's a representation of the moment. And he's distancing away from that. That was not the right way to behave in that moment. That wasn't right. This isn't me. I'm distancing from that. So I don't hate that at all. I think it's quite convincing. Then he continues with, no part of me thinks that this was the optimal way. So again, we have that emphasis. We have that reiteration, no part of me. And we see the eye block. So again, eyes are closed. I don't want to face this. I don't want to deal with this. This isn't me. I'm distancing from this. So I do believe that. I do believe that at this point, at least a part of him thinks that this was not the right way to handle it. Now, this comes with a giant warning. He's an actor. He's an incredible actor. I've seen him in incredible movies, in very convincing roles, and he's really good at this type of thing, getting my emotions out. Now, a lot of people in the original analysis said, oh, it's all fake and this could be acted and that could be acted. That was a real moment of reaction. It's much harder to act in those moments. It's hard to conceal things in those moments. But in a prepared thing like this, where he's going to sit down, he's going to convey something, he would know how to do these emphasis things. He would know how to do these gestures. So am I convinced that there's genuine regret as to how he handled that in that moment? Yes, I am. Does that mean anything? No, it doesn't.
After Jada rolled her eyes, did she tell you to do something? No. It's like, you know, I made a choice on my own, from my own experiences, from my history with Chris. Jada had nothing to do with it. I'm sorry, babe. I'm gonna say sorry to my kids and my family for the heat that I brought on all of us.
Okay, a lot going on there, including one little thing that gave away something that I don't think is too intentional from whoever is producing or directing or organizing this. So let's start right in the beginning where he goes, you know, so the question is, did Jada tell him to do something? And we immediately see this sort of no yes gesture. So it was like, he starts with a no, then he does this.
No.
So a lot of people often think that an inconsistent head gesture can tell us a lot. And in certain situations it can. For example, in this case, if he said, no, Jada did not tell me to do anything, I would agree that a yes gesture is out of place. In this case, it wasn't a nod. It was more of an emphasis. So he went like this and like this. So he started with a no, and then he went to this. Then immediately, two things happen. One, he has this sort of mocking, laughing gesture that Will Smith gets when he's stressed and he's trying to lighten the mood. We've seen this a lot in the Red Table conversation. And in this case, it's sort of like, well, that's just silly. That's just ridiculous. Let's all laugh about it. And at the same time, we're seeing, for the first time in this video, contempt on his face. We're seeing one corner of the mouth going up. Contempt is the only universal human emotion that we display or express and is not symmetric on the face. Like, for example, when you're really happy or you're filled with joy, you don't smile with only half your face. You're not like, oh my God, I'm so happy. It doesn't make any sense. But contempt is only on half the face. And it could be displayed in one of two ways. It's either one of these or one of these. In either way, it's either the corner of the mouth or this sort of upper corner that go up only one side, and you might see a line, but not always. It's actually half of disgust. Disgust is both, contempt is one, like that or like that. So here we're seeing that as he's kind of answering this question, did Jada make me do this? We're getting this, that's so silly, and he's kind of chuckling and laughing as we see that contempt, like, that's so silly, that's a silly thought. But the million-dollar question is this, is the contempt he's feeling towards the question, like that's a really silly question, or is the contempt he's feeling towards Jada? More on this very soon. Then he goes on with a whole lot of what we call verbal leaks and what I call fluff. So first he goes, no. And then he's saying, it's like, I made a choice on my own. So that's a whole lot of stuff to just reiterate the no.
It's like, I made a choice.
It's like he's looking for the right words to convince you that she had nothing to do with it. I think it's a very uncredible response. And it's pretty high in deception if we look at strictly those verbal tells where he's not really answering the question. We've got these verbal leaks of and there's that speech disfluency where his speech is kind of falling apart. Basically, it's a whole lot of fluff to say nothing. And to me, that's always pretty suspicious. And he reiterates, I made a choice on my own. I need this to be very clear. It was my choice. I did this on my own. Saying it was my choice, it's clear that it's on your own, but he feels the need to add this. Listen, I can't help in this moment but get the vibe of, when you were little and your parents told you go apologize or go do something, otherwise there's no ice cream? That's the vibe I'm getting here. It's like, no, it wasn't Jada. It wasn't Jada. It was me. It was me. It was I did this on my own. Reiterating that. I also want you to notice what's happening when he says my history with Chris. Look at his teeth. Look at his teeth all the way up to that statement. Literally rewind and look at what he's saying all the way up to my history with Chris. In every sentence, focus on the black between his teeth because he's talking and he's separating his teeth, and you could clearly see that as he's articulating with every single sentence, his teeth come apart. When he says my history with Chris, that's said through the teeth. His teeth don't move. My history with Chris.
From my own experiences, from my history with Chris, Jada had nothing to do with it.
And this is very consistent with something that we say with anger or frustration. His teeth are staying together. This, we believe, is left over evolutionarily from when we used to show our teeth in anger to say, look at these sharp things. So when we're angry, we tend to talk like this. It's almost a threat. This is the first time it happens in that sentence where his teeth are together, my history with Chris. So some frustration there. There's something going on there that he's not elaborating on. Also, we're not dumb. We're not stupid. We all saw Jada's reaction to the joke. We saw that shift in posture. We saw the disappointment. We saw the rolling of the eyes. You're her husband. You're telling us you didn't see that? I would have believed this a lot more if he said, listen, I did see Jada. I did see that she was affected by this. This is something she's dealt with before. It's something she feels a little bit insecure over. So that ignited a certain passion or a certain fire in me, and I was just seeing red. So if he sort of attributed a bit of accountability to her in saying that, no, she didn't tell me, but I obviously saw that my wife was uncomfortable, then I'd be like, okay, I could believe that. But come on, to say straight up, no, she had nothing to do with this, it's just not believable, especially the way it's coming out. I don't believe that she had nothing to do with it. And the way he's answering the question further makes me believe the opposite of what he's trying to convince, which is she had quite a bit to do, not only with him getting up in that moment, but with this part of this video. But the big thing that I want to talk about is in that clip, and I saw it and I was like, ooh, that's a misrepresentation. They're going for something, but they kind of showed their hand. And this is something I know, again, because of my work on television and YouTube. And it's at some point the camera cuts to the side to a different angle. And this happens a lot throughout the interview where they're just giving us different angles. Cuts to the side where he's talking about how Jada had nothing to do with this. Then it cuts back and he continues to talk about how, I'm sorry, babe, and he apologizes. And it's meant to look like one fluid thought, one fluid thing that he's answering. But there was a cut. There was actually an obvious cut. And not just a cut like they cut out something. There was a cut where things were discussed and he came back and continued. And the reason we know that is after the side angle, when it comes back to the front angle, it's a different angle from what it was before. The front camera is on a tripod. There's no reason for it to move. But when we come back, the angle is different. And I'll show you side by side right now. I'll go from one to the other because I want you to see, look at that shift. It's a slightly different angle. We're seeing more on one side. There's a slight upwards shift. And that doesn't happen on a tripod. The only time that happens is we stop, we're discussing, the cameraman might change his battery, but there's a pause there. There's something that happens. And we came back and he immediately started with that, I'm sorry, babe, blah, 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 blah. What do I think happened? Simply, I think he gave that answer and someone behind that camera, was it Jada, was it someone else from the PR team, felt that it wasn't quite enough. There needs to be an apology to Jada and his family. I think there was a cut there. I think they discussed it. Maybe they went back and forth on it a little. He came back, he sat down, and then he started right away with, "I'm sorry, babe." And in editing, they kind of made it seem like it was one fluid sort of thought that he sat there, he answered the question, and they're using this angle shift to hide the fact that there was a visible stop there. The other clue that this wasn't just cut out, like, he said something in editing, they were like, "Oh, that's not, we'll just cut that out," which would have been fine, is a very obvious tone change. He goes from a more animated, higher pitch to now a calmer and lower, "I'm sorry, babe." Like, it's a completely different tone. And again, I've seen this in editing. I've seen it in my own videos where I took a break, I went to do something, I came back, I didn't quite remember the mood I was in. So we see that shift in tone. So I'm not alleging that there was just a cutout sentence here or that there's something. There was a full hard stop, and they kind of made it seem like it was a continuous statement. Now let's look at what's happening on his face when he says, "I'm sorry, babe." And this is fascinating because there's two almost polar opposite ways to look at it. So he says, "I'm sorry, babe." We're seeing this, and this. So we have this kind of looking down. We have this, well, it's actually on, I believe, his left. So he's like this as he's shaking his head. So earlier I said contempt is non-symmetric. So, and it often looks like this. Somebody, you feel contemptuous towards someone, you might just have one of those. And it looks a lot like that. He's also shaking his head. He's saying, "I'm sorry," and he's shaking his head. So there's two ways to look at this. One is he's feeling contemptuous, maybe towards her for telling him, like, "You need to apologize. Like, I need you to do this." So maybe that's what it is. Like, I don't really feel like I am sorry, towards you with this contempt. But it can also be the polar opposite of that, because we do shake our heads in disbelief, like, or disappointment, to say, like, yeah, and often with an apology, "I'm really sorry, I shouldn't have done that." It's a negative thought, and that contempt can be towards himself and the way that he behaved. I really don't know. Let me know in the comments what you think, because both would look almost exactly that same way. If I'm forced to say an apology, and I might do it this way, but if I'm ashamed and I feel bad for what I did, I might do it exactly the same way. So it's so difficult. There aren't too many other clues to figure out what that head shake with that contempt means. Let me know in the comments what you think.
To all my fellow nominees, this is a community. It's like I won because you voted for me, and it really breaks my heart to have stolen and tarnished your moment. I can still see Questlove's eyes. It happened on Questlove's award, and it's like I'm sorry really isn't sufficient.
I don't have too much to say here, because to me, this is another stretch that felt pretty genuine. Like the body language here, the illustrators, is a lot closer to what he was saying about Chris Rock's mom. I do feel there's genuineness to this. I do feel that he actually feels bad for the other nominees that he took away from. A lot of commenters say, "Oh, he's a narcissist, he only cares about himself." I am seeing bursts in this of him actually trying to sort of show real emotion. And this is one of those. Right at the end, when he says sorry isn't enough, we do see a real flash of disgust. Disgust is the nose crinkles like this. There's a bit of a smirk as he's saying that. It's like there's a slight bit of a smile, and his hands are coming up like this. Is the smile anything super wrong? No, it could be in shame sometimes, like we kind of smile uncomfortably. He does a lot as well. He breaks the tension with humor. So I think he's feeling like it really wasn't great. We said disgust, and the hands come out. Like, this is all I have to give you, and I know it's not enough. Listen, you guys might think I'm crazy. I felt that a little bit more genuinely, and there isn't enough that I could see in the body language to tell you that was not genuine.
What would you say to the people who looked up to you before the slap, or people who expressed that you let them down? So there's two things. One, disappointing people is my central trauma. The work I'm trying to do is I am deeply remorseful, and I'm trying to be remorseful without being ashamed of myself, right? I'm human, and I made a mistake, and You know, if you hang on, I promise we'll be able to be friends again.
For this last clip, I'm not going to go too much into specific details, but the overall vibe. So this is it's a lot of self-reflection here. He's talking about himself. Again, we're not seeing too much movement. We're seeing a lot of downwards sort of self-reflection, deeply emotional. There's a couple of words he says there, you know, central trauma, and then he makes a distinction, being remorseful without being ashamed of myself. He slows down as he says that, like he's teaching these concepts, like this is my central trauma. There's a distinction between remorseful and ashamed. I don't feel these are necessarily his lessons. I don't know if he talked to someone, maybe it was Jada, maybe it was someone else, maybe it was a therapist, and these are someone else's words that he's echoing and almost saying to himself. I'm trying to do this. This is my central trauma. I have to deal with this. I have to be remorseful without being ashamed. It's almost like we're getting his self-talk here. That's what it feels like to me. We're seeing a lot of eye blocking throughout this. I think he's having a hard time facing this. Again, remember, this is someone that for the better part of the beginning of his career, it was all about comedy, all about lighthearted. And then he did some dramas, but even in those dramatic roles, there was, you know, comedic relief. Like he's always had a great sense of humor. It's a different Will Smith to see him like this, thinking about himself, reflecting. And you know what? Honestly, I think he gets points. Whether it's insincere, there's moments of insincerity, or this is real, I absolutely believe he gets points. At the end, he says, you know, I promise, you know, if you just stick around, we could be friends again. What a strange statement for an adult. I think there's a child here coming out. Like this little kid who feels like, first of all, a lot of this feels like a little kid. Like I said earlier, a little kid who was told, no, you go make an apology video or there's no ice cream for you. But besides that, it's almost like he's this little kid who just acted out and now he's in trouble and he's thinking about it and he's trying to be better and he's like, why won't my friends play with me? And I want my friends to like me again. I do believe that it's a central trauma for people to be disapproving of him. He's always sort of had that entertainer in him to gain people's approval or acceptance. He's not getting it here. So I think that use of word right at the end is so important. We could be friends again. This is a child who's hurt by his actions. And I think in that moment we're seeing someone who wants to do better. So what is the final verdict? We had some ups and downs. I know there was points of this where it really seemed like I was like, no, you're full of it. And then points where I was like, oh, Will Smith. It's that. There's a bit of both. So there are parts of this that I feel are heavily directed or too sort of planned. And even the entire image, the entire aesthetic is like, we're doing this is important and it's directed by other people as opposed to just this thing you had to do. But there are also moments of sincerity where I'm seeing real emotion. I'm seeing some stuff towards the mother, towards the other award winners that night, right there towards the end. There are little moments I feel are sincere. Of course, everything could be argued the opposite way. You know, you could say he's an actor. Those moments were all fabricated. Yeah, fine, it's possible. And at the end of the day, again, I think he gets points for trying. Some would say too little, too late, but he didn't have to do this. At the end of the day, he could have said, no, I'm not going to make this video. He put himself out there. Yes, there are moments that are directed, and I feel like anytime a celebrity is going to make a public statement, the PR team has to look at it and say, nope, can't say that, can't say that. And they're under such a microscope nowadays. So I even understand the moments of this that feel directed. And as you could see, I'm going back and forth. So hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments what you thought, because I don't think I can make up my mind, and you guys might help me sort of pick one of the sides. I look forward to reading your comments, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video.